As I drove up the winding gravel road, the dense forest seemed to swallow me whole. The cabin emerged from the darkness, its weathered exterior blending seamlessly with the gnarled trees that surrounded it. I had come here seeking solitude, a quiet place to work on my novel. But as I stepped out of the car, an icy chill crept down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The key turned in the lock with a rusty groan, and the door swung open, revealing a musty interior that smelled of decay and neglect. As I stepped inside, the floorboards creaked beneath my feet, echoing through the empty rooms like whispers from another time. I set my bags down and began to explore the cabin, each room holding a new mystery, a new shadow lurking in the corners. In the living room, I noticed strange markings carved into the walls, their jagged lines and cryptic symbols seeming to dance in the flickering light of my candle. I traced my fingers over them, trying to decipher their meaning. But a sudden gust of wind extinguished the flame, plunging me into darkness. Fear gripped my heart as I fumbled for my lighter, the tiny flicker of light a feeble defense against the oppressive gloom. As the night wore on, the cabin came alive with an unsettling symphony of sounds. Creaking floorboards, groaning pipes, and a faint scratching noise that seemed to emanate from within the walls themselves. I tried to dismiss them as the settling of an old building. But deep down, I knew there was something more at play. Something sinister and malevolent. I retired to the bedroom, hoping to find solace in sleep, but my dreams were plagued by terrifying visions. Twisted, distorted faces loomed out of the darkness, their mouths agape in silent screams. I awoke with a start, my heart pounding in my chest, only to find that the room had grown unnaturally cold. A figure stood in the corner, its form barely visible in the moonlight that seeped through the tattered curtains. I blinked, and it was gone, leaving me to question whether it had ever been there at all. As I lay there, trying to calm my racing thoughts, a realization crept over me like a suffocating fog. The cabin wasn't just old and eerie. It was alive with a malevolent energy that had been waiting for me, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. I awoke the next morning, groggy and disoriented, the events of the previous night feeling more like a nightmare than reality. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, casting an eerie glow across the room. I tried to shake off the unease that clung to me like a second skin, and focus on the reason I'd come here. To write. But as I sat down at the old wooden desk, my mind kept wandering back to the strange markings on the walls, the unexplained noises, and the figure in the corner of my room. I found myself questioning my own sanity, wondering if the isolation of the cabin was playing tricks on my mind. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to investigate the cabin's history. I rummaged through drawers and cabinets, searching for any clues about its past occupants. In a dusty old trunk, I discovered a faded journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. As I read through the entries, a chill ran through my body. The journal spoke of dark rituals, of a malevolent entity that had been summoned and now resided within the cabin's walls. As the day wore on, the strange occurrences intensified. Objects moved on their own accord, sliding across surfaces or toppling to the floor. The scratching noises in the walls grew louder, more insistent, as if something was trying to claw its way out. I found myself jumping at every creak, every groan of the old building, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. That night, the nightmares returned with a vengeance. I found myself in a dark, cavernous space, surrounded by grotesque figures in hooded robes. They chanted in a language I couldn't understand, their voices rising in a discordant chorus. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey, and I remained rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. I woke up screaming, my sheets drenched in sweat. But the nightmare wasn't over. As I sat up in bed, I saw a dark figure standing at the foot of my bed, its form barely visible in the gloom. It reached out a hand, long and gnarled, and I felt an icy touch on my skin. I closed my eyes, praying for it to be just another dream. But when I opened them again, the figure was gone, and in its place was a small, ancient-looking key. With trembling hands, I picked up the key, knowing that it must unlock something within the cabin. I steeled myself, realizing that I had no choice but to confront the evil that lurked within these walls. But as I stepped out into the hallway, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap, that the cabin and its dark secrets would consume me before I ever had a chance to escape. The key felt heavy in my hand as I descended the creaking stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. Each step seemed to bring me closer to an unfathomable truth, a darkness that had been waiting for me since I first set foot in this accursed cabin. The air grew thick and oppressive, the shadows seeming to writhe and twist with a life of their own. At the base of the stairs, I found myself standing before a door I had never seen before. It was ancient, the wood warped and blackened with age. With trembling fingers, I inserted the key into the rusted lock, and with a grinding creak, the door swung open, revealing a chamber bathed in an unearthly red glow. As I stepped inside, I was hit by a wave of putrid air, the stench of decay and sulfur overwhelming my senses. The walls were covered in grotesque symbols and images, depicting scenes of unspeakable horror and depravity. In the center of the room stood an altar, stained with the blood of countless sacrifices, and there, hovering above the altar, was the entity that had been haunting my dreams. It was a thing of pure malevolence, a swirling mass of darkness and chaos. Its eyes burned with an unholy fire, and as it fixed its gaze upon me, I felt my sanity beginning to fray at the edges. I tried to run, but an invisible force held me in place, drawing me inexorably towards the altar. I fought with every ounce of my strength, but it was useless. The entity's power was too great, and I was but a plaything in its twisted game. As I was dragged closer to the altar, I saw images flashing before my eyes, visions of the cabin's past, of the countless souls that had been consumed by the darkness. And then, with a sickening realization, I understood the truth. I was never meant to escape this place. The cabin had chosen me, had lured me here for a purpose, and that purpose was to become one with the entity, to join the legions of the damned.